Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a special camping and also story guide for Last Epoch. As you can see behind me in this video, we'll be learning from some of the speedrunners of Last Epoch and also going through the guide and also my additional notes for each of the chapters. So in this video, we'll be learning how speedrunners can reduce the entire campaign of Last Epoch down to 1 to 2 hours, and what are the tips and also what are the tricks they will be using in this particular method. So I was recommended by one of Diablo 4 friend Halfmind to have a look at Turk over here, who is an incredible speedrunner. And we'll be learning together with his particular speedrunning method in under 2 hours to go through all the campaign and also unlock all the idols and also passives for Last Epoch to be ready for 1.0. So in this video, we'll be following closely to this particular 2-hour guide, which I have summarized into a lot of more multiple timestamps, and use the summary notes provided by Zeke over here as well to have a look at how we can do things faster if you want to fast forward into the end game and also start farming a monolith and also starting building your end game build for Last Epoch. Now, starting with one of the interesting tips I want to share with you guys with speedrunning the campaign and also the story. Most of the time in the story, you'll face multiple mini-bosses like this one, and this is one of the first tutorial bosses. Notice that sometimes you'll be added with NPC, and for this case, our NPC can also freeze enemies. This is great if you keep yourself different. If you keep your distance against the boss and let the NPC do a majority of the work and also take a majority of the damage. And this is something I noticed through the speedrun, and most of the speedrunners will be using this method in the early stage of the game. Now, second to that, what I want to highlight to you guys is, if you notice over here, I have quest NPCs in the main city, but I'm not talking to them. So I'm trying to replicate what the speedrunners are doing, and you can see that by simply running through the town, I'll be unlocking my portal. And I'm also skipping talking with 2 of those NPCs in the town. But you might be wondering, hey, isn't that not progress in the main quest? And that's what I thought. But after looking at how the speedrunners do it, so let's have a look what happens. Once I proceed to the next part of the city, notice that I have already automatically spoke to those NPCs, and the main quest will proceed. So this saves tons of time by not having to talk to certain NPCs, and the speedrunners will be using this method a lot. And this is something I realized will be very interesting, and I have tried to keep all the timestamps for you guys to see at which stage of the campaign you can stop talking to NPCs and just run past them to save tons of time. So coming over to my notes over here. As you guys might have noticed, I have collected a majority of the Last Epoch notes as I was making guides, and should you not be able to find this guide, simply scroll down onto the dock and you'll be see this guide a little down as we make more guide for the Last Epoch. So for this speedrunner guide, what you want to do is you can click on any of my timestamps over here, and this will take you to text video at a certain point in time. For example, this is one of my chapter 1 reminder to speak to the NPC. As I was trying to speedrun, sometimes I actually forgot to speak to this NPC. It is quite important to speak to this NPC to progress with your quest. Now, as we go further, you get to see how our speedrunning friend was upgrading items through the shops and in what stage of the game it is the best to look for different items as you progress through the story, which will make your character stronger and maybe move a little faster. Now, instead of going through all the timestamps with you guys, I'll be going through some of the highlights in each of the chapters. And one of the best way to look and also to learn from speedrunning friend tech is, of course, you can be running the video on 2x speed, but this is still a 2-hour video even if you skip. And here, Zegarin over here have made a summary of each of the chapters, what are the highlights, what are the quests that has been done. So what I recommend is, firstly come over to the summary to see which of the chapters and which of the side quests and which of the paths and directions used. And then, should you want more details on how those are working and what are the highlights for each of the chapters, you can then come over to my timestamps over here, which will be broken down into chapters and also highlights for each of the chapters using this particular speedrunning guide. And as we keep going, so let me have a look and show you a few of those. So here we can see one of the fights over here against the mini-boss. And after our rogue friend defeated the mini-boss, notice that he will be proceeding through the side quests, and he will be purposely skipping the side quests because he doesn't need this one and it takes too much time. And similarly, as you go through any of the highlights over here, at the start of the chapter, I have increased some of the timestamps for you guys just to show you. So this is one of the examples that he was skipping one of the shines. So the shine is out of the way. And sometimes he can get a haze shine or might be a water shine. That can be helpful. But other times, those are not worth it. It will take some time for him to go there and come back. So those are some of the little highlights. And let's go into some of the more interesting highlights. So here we'll have another highlight of him talking to NPC. I know it's not the biggest highlight, right? So what is happening is I'm trying to record the time where he actually have to talk to NPCs, where he have to teleport to a new place. And there will be times that he doesn't have to talk to NPCs. So in this sense, this kind of completes the entire summary for each of the chapters. I know that this could be a little tedious, but this should help you in case you don't want to watch the entire replay even at 2x speed for 1 or 2 hours. Now as we go forward, you can be combining with the Excel guide over here with some of the highlights of the side quests and also using my timestamps over here. One of the highlights I want to share with you guys is in chapter 4. Notice that our rogue friend will be finding and will be unlocking one of the warp portals. And after unlocking the warp portals, he will go directly into the rift. And once he goes directly into the rift, and then if we skip a little bit, you can see that by defeating the rift boss, he will be able to obtain 1 additional passive point. And this will provide him with some additional experience. So here's a short boss fight over here. As you guys can see in the background, after defeating the boss, he was able to obtain the idol slots and also for the boss. So there will be some particular highlights within the chapter that is a must do because it provides a lot of value for your time and gives you a lot of reward in terms of passive points and also idol spots. Now as you go through the particular guide, you can see that he was able to skip NPCs again in different parts of the story. And here I'll show you guys again. So here what you can notice is after progressing to chapter 5, he was directly skipping this particular NPC and just going with his skill point. And often in the highlights of each of the chapters, you can see when he was skipping NPCs and also when he was upgrading his gears. He can either be crafting items or buying items from the vendors. Now I think by this point I don't have to go through each of the chapter highlights, but one of the things that was quite interesting to me is at chapter 8 you'll be fighting the sea god Logan. And before fighting Logan, you can see our rogue friend crafting his gears before fighting the sea boss, likely getting more resistance and also getting more stats ready for the elements of the boss. I do believe the boss is lightning and also cold, and it's quite important to have some of those resistance so you don't get one-shotted. Now, second to that, at chapter 8, you can see our rogue friend was actually skipping one of the side stories. After defeating the boss, what he will do is, he will actually use one of the warp point to come back to do one of the side stories. So if we fast forward a little bit, you can see that he is actually locating the location of Leleth Road. So I'll show you guys over here. So once he teleports to Leleth Road, he will go into the Leleth Tower. And by speed running this method, he will be able to defeat this particular boss and also acquire additional passive point. So it's quite important that if you guys want to get the most out of your speedrunning, you can follow his method and also the directions he uses to get most of your, the time saving out of this. So even though I wanted to highlight each of the chapters, I think at this point you guys can know the gist of the things. So just as a recap of how you want to learn the speedrunning. Of course, a big thank you for Tech for sharing his multiple speedrunning guide. And I'm currently following the under 2 hour speedrunning guide. You can see there's multiple speedrunning guide, and I try to use the most recent one with Rogue class. If you guys are running Falconers, this can be great. If you guys are running Warlock, this could be something similar as well. And as you go through his guide, you can set the speed of the video on 2x speed. You can notice that he doesn't have any audio because he mentioned there was audio recording bug. And you can come back over here with Zagarian's lovely guide over here as a summary. Finally, coming over to my notes for additional tips and also additional highlights, should you feel like you're skipping too much of the guide and you're missing some of the highlights. And this concludes my speedrunning planning for Last Epoch for 1.0. Hopefully it takes me about 3 to 4 hours. I don't think it will take me 2 hours to do the entire thing because I'm a little slow with clicking. But knowing those methods and also tricks is incredibly good. Especially the ability to avoid speaking to NPCs and saving tons of time through the animations. which some of those animations are not even skippable. So this is a really lively guide if you guys want to get the most of your day one experience for Last Epoch.